Think about this for a moment. Early morning. The sun is just rising. A light breeze drifts along the banks of the Nile River. And a man, sunk up to his ankles in mud, is carefully cutting long green reeds one by one with the knife in his hand. Doesn't exactly sound like an ordinary scene for our times, does it? But that man, without realizing it, was part of something that would change the course of human history. So what was he doing by collecting papyrus? Today I'm going to tell you how this humble swamp plant became one of the most important inventions in the world. First, let's ask the obvious question: what is papyrus? Papyrus is a long, reed-like plant that grows along the banks of the Nile River and in marshy areas. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. Maybe a bundle of reeds, maybe a bunch of wild grass. Nobody looks at it and thinks, this is going to change the world. But the Egyptians saw something in this plant that no one before them had ever seen. They peeled away the outer layer. They sliced the whitish, fibrous interior into thin strips. They laid these strips side by side, then placed another layer on top. They pressed down with something heavy. They left it to dry in the sun, and what came out in the end was a thin surface you could write on, carry around, and fold up. In short, one of the world's first papers. And the English word paper actually comes from papyrus. So every notebook, every book, every sticky note you use today is a legacy with roots stretching back to a swamp on the banks of the Nile. So how did this invention come about? We don't know exactly, because the story begins roughly 5,000 years ago. But what we do know is that writing had already been invented. The problem was figuring out where to write things and how to preserve them. Carving into stone was possible. But stone was heavy. Hard to carry. Saying, hold on, that decision is written down, I just need to go get the stone, wasn't exactly practical. Clay tablets were in use too, but they were heavy and broke easily. Writing on walls? Not practical either. You can't chip a wall off and take it with you, and that's exactly where the Egyptians' discovery of papyrus became a monumental breakthrough for the world. It was light. It was portable. It could be rolled up. And you could write on it easily and beautifully. It could be reproduced with relative ease. Scribes, priests, and government officials working in the royal palace used papyrus like a weapon, because in those days, being able to read and write was already a great privilege. And if you were also walking around with rolls of papyrus under your arm, people looked at you differently. If seeing someone with the latest laptop today is impressive, carrying papyrus back then was even more so. Of course, everything changed once papyrus was discovered, because now we could easily carry and preserve knowledge. That might sound like a simple sentence. But think about it for a second. If you can't write something down, that knowledge only lives in the mind of the person who knows it. When that person dies, the knowledge dies with them. It can be passed on, yes, but with every passing, something is lost, changed, or forgotten. But once you put it in writing, that knowledge becomes immortal, and that was exactly what the Egyptians achieved with papyrus. Laws were written down. Taxes were recorded. Trade agreements were documented. Treaties between nations were put into writing. Religious texts, poems, medical knowledge, mathematical calculations. All of it was passed down through papyrus. And do you know what's been found on some of the papyri discovered today? Doctors' treatment methods, court records, and mathematics problems, all written out on papyrus. And of course, the one thing we absolutely can't live without. Shopping lists. Yes, we're not joking. Shopping lists. For 1,000 years ago, a forgetful Egyptian might have woken up in the morning, grabbed a piece of papyrus before heading out the door, and written something like, buy bread, buy fish, buy beer. Humanity has changed enormously when it comes to technology. But making a shopping list? That never changed. And then there were inventory lists, records kept by merchants, religious centers, kingdoms, and cities to track their treasuries and stockpiles of goods. One historical note worth adding here: since enslaved people were classified as property, they were recorded in inventory lists as well. This great invention, papyrus, didn't stay in Egypt alone. The Greeks used it. The Romans used it. Many different civilizations adopted papyrus, and the famous Library of Alexandria, one of the greatest libraries in history, is said to have held hundreds of thousands of papyrus scrolls. Philosophy, astronomy, medicine, history, literature, all the knowledge of that era, rolled up and sitting on shelves. Just imagine. That library was essentially the internet of the ancient world. But papyrus wasn't perfect. It had a weakness. Moisture damaged it quickly. It could tear. It wasn't long-lasting. So over time, papyrus was first replaced by parchment, and then by the paper we still use today, originally imported from China, which ultimately led to papyrus leaving the historical stage for good. But the legacy it left behind? That never went away. If you're reading a newspaper on your phone, turning the page of a book, sending information by email, or writing up an inventory at work, at the core of all of it is the same idea: save knowledge. Carry it. Share it. And one of the most important architects of that idea in human history was an unassuming, Ordinary looking plant growing along the banks of the Nile, papyrus. Most of us probably never think about it today. But if those first papers carrying humanity's memory had never existed, we wouldn't know the greater part of history, because sometimes the things that change the world aren't born in grand buildings or royal palaces. Sometimes they're hidden in the muddy waters of a riverbank, in a plant that nobody paid much attention to. If you enjoy history and science videos like this one, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next video with another fascinating story.